Maya never imagined that one rainy Tuesday night would change her life forever. What started as an act of desperation to save a dying man would reveal a truth so shocking it would shatter everything she thought she knew about love, sacrifice, and destiny. The rain hammered against the windows of St. Mary's Hospital as Maya Rodriguez finished her double shift in the emergency department. At 24, she had already seen more trauma and heartbreak than most people experience in a lifetime. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the universe seemed to be holding its breath. Maya's sneakers squeaked against the polished floor as she hurried toward the exit, her scrubs still damp with sweat from the hectic evening. She had exactly $37 to her name, a mountain of student loans, and a sick mother whose medication cost more than Maya's monthly salary. Life as a nursing student working nights to survive wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. The automatic doors whooshed open, and the September storm hit her like a wall of ice water. She fumbled for her umbrella, cursing under her breath when she realized she'd left it in the break room. Again. That's when she heard it. A weak, desperate voice cutting through the thunderous rain. "Please, help me." Maya spun around, her heart hammering. In the dim glow of the hospital's exterior lights, she saw him. A man, maybe in his late 20s, collapsed against the brick wall near the parking garage. His expensive-looking suit was torn and soaked through, dark stains spreading across the fabric that looked suspiciously like blood. "Sir," Maya dropped her purse and rushed toward him, her medical training kicking in instantly. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open, the most striking green eyes she'd ever seen, even dulled by pain and exhaustion. Don't take me inside," he whispered, his accent carrying hints of something European, refined. They'll find... Hey, Maya's pulse spiked. "You need medical attention, you're bleeding, and no hospitals." His hand shot out with surprising strength, gripping her wrist. "Please, I'm begging you." The rational part of Maya's brain screamed at her to call security, to get this man proper medical care regardless of his protests. But something in his eyes, a desperate vulnerability mixed with fierce determination, made her hesitate. "Who's looking for you?" she asked quietly, crouching beside him in the rain. "People who want me dead." His voice was growing weaker. "I don't have much time. The poison, it's spreading." "Poison." Maya's blood ran cold. "What kind of poison?" "Ricin," he breathed. "Injected. Maybe 2 hours ago. I need the antidote. But if they find me here..." Maya's mind raced. Ricin poisoning was often fatal, and the window for treatment was narrow. But what he was suggesting, treating him outside of a hospital setting, was not only dangerous, but potentially illegal. "I can't help you without proper equipment," she said, even as her hands moved to check his pulse. Thready but present. His skin was clammy, temperature elevated, classic signs of systemic poisoning. "There's a way," he said, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "But you won't. You won't like it." "What are you talking about?" He struggled to sit up straighter, wincing with the effort. "My blood type is O negative, universal donor. But I'm also immune to ricin, genetic mutation, 1 in 10 million. My blood. If you could process it, filter it." Maya's scientific mind immediately understood what he was suggesting and the impossibility of it. "That's not how immunity works. Even if what you're saying is true, I can't perform a blood transfusion in a parking lot. I don't have the equipment, the sterile environment. There's another way." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Skin-to-skin contact, extended, intimate contact. The antibodies can be absorbed transdermally, but only through the most sensitive mucous membranes." The implication hit Maya like a physical blow. "I'm asking you to save my life." His hand found hers, and despite his weakened state, his grip was warm, reassuring. "I know how it sounds, I know what I'm asking, but I'll die without it, and I have people counting on me, important work that can't die with me." Maya stared at him, rain streaming down her face, mixing with tears she hadn't realized were falling. Everything about this situation screamed danger, screamed run away. But something deeper, something she couldn't name, kept her rooted in place. "Who are you?" she whispered. A sad smile crossed his lips. Someone who never learned how to ask for help until it was almost too late. Thunder crashed overhead, and Maya realized they were running out of time. His breathing was becoming more labored, his skin taking on a grayish pallor that she recognized from her medical textbooks. Dios duam. Systemic poisoning. There has to be another way, she said desperately. There is no other way. His eyes were pleading now, vulnerable in a way that struck straight to her heart. I understand if you can't, I understand if you won't. But please, please don't let me die alone. Maya closed her eyes, her heart warring with her mind. She thought of her mother, lying in her hospital bed just 3 floors above them, slowly succumbing to cancer, because they couldn't afford the experimental treatments that might save her. She thought of all the patients she'd lost, all the times she'd felt helpless in the face of death. Here was someone she might actually be able to save. But the cost. "If I do this," she said slowly, opening her eyes to meet his gaze, "I need to know your name." "Your real name?" "Alexander," he said without hesitation. "Alexander Blackthorne." The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it, with a mixture of pride and pain, told her it meant everything to him. "Okay, Alexander Blackthorne," Maya said, her decision crystallizing with a clarity that surprised her. "Let's get you somewhere safe." Maya's apartment was a tiny studio 6 blocks from the hospital, cramped and cluttered but clean. She half-carried, half-dragged Alexander up the 3 flights of stairs, his arm draped heavily across her shoulders, his breathing becoming more ragged with each step. "Almost there," she murmured, fumbling for her keys with shaking hands. "Just hold on." Inside, she guided him to her narrow bed, the only piece of furniture in the room besides a rickety kitchen table and 2 mismatched chairs. The space felt even smaller with his presence filling it. He was taller than she'd realized, broad-shouldered despite his current weakened state. "I need to examine you properly," Maya said, flipping on the overhead light. In the harsh fluorescent glow, she could see the full extent of his condition. His face was pale but flushed with fever, and there was a small puncture wound on his neck, already infected and angry-looking. "The injection site," Alexander confirmed, following her gaze. "They got me when I was leaving the embassy." "Embassy?" Maya filed that information away as she moved to her small bathroom to gather supplies. She kept a basic first aid kit from her nursing program, along with some leftover medical supplies she'd borrowed from the hospital. Nothing fancy, but enough to clean and dress wounds. When she returned, Alexander was attempting to remove his torn shirt, his movements clumsy and pained. "Let me," Maya said softly, setting her supplies on the nightstand. Her hands trembled slightly as she helped him out of the ruined garment, revealing a torso that spoke of careful physical training, lean muscle, a few old scars that looked like knife wounds, and skin that felt like fire beneath her fingertips. "You're burning up," she observed, pressing the back of her hand to his forehead. "The fever's part of it," he said, his voice strained. "My body's fighting the poison, but it's losing." Maya cleaned the injection site with antiseptic, trying to ignore the way Alexander's breath hitched when she touched him. The wound was worse than she'd thought. Not just a simple injection, but a deliberate, savage puncture, designed to cause maximum damage. "Whoever did this wanted you to suffer," she said quietly. "They succeeded." Alexander's laugh was bitter. "I've been running for 6 hours. Every minute I can feel it spreading through my system." Maya finished bandaging the wound and sat back, looking at him seriously. "Alexander, what you described earlier, the transdermal absorption theory, I've never heard of anything like that in any medical literature." "Because it's not common knowledge," he said, meeting her eyes. "The research was classified, conducted by a private pharmaceutical company. My family. We've been involved in some unconventional medical research." "Your family?" Alexander was quiet for a long moment. "Maya, what I'm about to tell you might change how you see this situation. My family owns Blackthorne Industries. We develop medical technologies, including biodefense applications. The name hit Maya like a sledgehammer. Blackthorn Industries, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, worth billions, with research facilities on every continent. She'd heard of them, of course, but always as this distant, almost mythical corporation. "You're that Blackthorn," she breathed. "I am." His voice was steady, but she could see the vulnerability in his eyes. "And the people who poisoned me, they're after our research. Research that could save thousands of lives. Research that my father died protecting." Maya sank into the chair beside her bed, her mind reeling. "Why didn't you just go to a private hospital? You have resources, security." "They have people everywhere," Alexander interrupted. "The hospital would have been the first place they looked. Coming to you. It was the only option I could think of." "But why me? You don't even know me." Alexander's gaze softened. "I watched you tonight in the ER. The way you treated that homeless man who came in with chest pains. Everyone else saw a junkie looking for drugs, but you saw a person in pain. You fought for him, made sure he got the tests he needed." Maya remembered. Mr. Peterson, 62, living under the bridge. She'd suspected cardiac issues despite his history of drug abuse, and she'd been right. A massive blockage that would have killed him within hours if left untreated. "You saw that?" she asked. "I was in the waiting room for 3 hours, trying to decide if I could trust the ER staff," Alexander said. "Watching you made the decision. For me, I knew. I knew you wouldn't let someone die, even a stranger." The weight of his words settled over Maya like a blanket. Here was this man, wealthy, powerful, connected, and he'd chosen to trust her, a nursing student barely scraping by with his life. "Alexander," she said softly, "what you're asking me to do, I'm not a virgin," he finished gently. "I understand. And I want you to know, I would never ask this of you if there was any other choice, but Maya, I can feel my heart starting to skip beats. The ricin is affecting my cardiac function. We have maybe an hour before it becomes irreversible." Maya looked at him, really looked at him. Despite his wealth and status, despite the mysterious circumstances that had brought him to her, what she saw was simply a man facing death with remarkable courage. A man who had somehow, in the span of a few hours, become important to her in a way she couldn't explain. "If we do this," she said slowly, "what happens afterward? Do you just disappear back to your billionaire life?" Alexander reached for her hand, his touch gentle despite his pain. "I don't know what happens afterward," he admitted. "I can't make you promises about the future when I don't even know if I'll have one. But I can promise you this. If you save my life tonight, I will spend whatever time I have left making sure it was worth saving." Maya felt something shift inside her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the physical attraction she was trying to ignore. Here was a man facing death, and his concern was proving himself worthy of life. "Okay," she whispered. "Tell me what I need to do." What followed was unlike anything Maya had ever imagined. Alexander guided her through the process with a tenderness that made her forget. This was supposed to be a medical procedure, not an act of love. "The key," he explained softly, as Maya dimmed the lights and lit the few candles she kept for power outages, "is sustained skin-to-skin contact. The antibodies need time to transfer, to integrate with your system before they can help mine." Maya nodded, trying to approach this clinically despite her racing heart. She was a medical professional, she reminded herself. She could handle this. But when Alexander's hands found hers, when he looked into her eyes with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper, something that looked remarkably like wonder, clinical detachment became impossible. "Are you sure?" he asked one more time, even as his fever spiked and his breathing became more labored. "I'm sure," Maya said, and realized she meant it completely. What happened next transcended the clinical, the desperate, even the physical. As Maya gave herself to this stranger, this mysterious, compelling man who had crashed into her life in the middle of a storm, she felt something awakening inside her that she'd never known existed. Alexander was gentle, reverent, treating her body like something precious despite the urgency of their situation. He whispered her name like a prayer, his hands mapping her skin with a combination of desperate need and careful worship that left her breathless. "Maya," he breathed against her neck as they moved together, "I need you to know, this isn't just about saving my life anymore." She understood, somewhere in the space between desperation and desire, between sacrifice and surrender, something real had bloomed between them. Something that would have been impossible under normal circumstances, but felt inevitable now. As the hours passed, Maya watched the color return to Alexander's face, watched his breathing steady and strengthen. The transdermal transfer, whatever scientific explanation Alexander had given, was working. But more than that, Maya felt changed, transformed by the intimacy they'd shared. When Alexander finally fell into a deep, healing sleep, Maya lay beside him, studying his face in the candlelight. His features were strong but refined, aristocratic in a way that spoke of generations of good breeding. But it was the small scar above his left eyebrow, the slight crook in his nose that suggested it had been broken at least once. That made him human to her. She traced the scar gently with her fingertip, and Alexander's eyes fluttered open. "How do you feel?" Maya asked softly. "Like I'm going to live," he said, capturing her hand and pressing it to his chest, where his heart beat strong and steady. "Thanks to you." "What happens now?" Maya asked the question that had been haunting her since she'd made the decision to help him. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. "Now I have to disappear," he said finally. "At least until I can figure out who tried to kill me and why." Maya felt her heart sink. "So this is goodbye, Maya." Alexander turned to face her fully, his green eyes intense in the flickering candlelight. "What we shared tonight, it wasn't just about the medical necessity. You have to know that. But my life is dangerous. The people after me won't hesitate to hurt anyone close to me. Staying in your life would put you at risk, and I can't live with that." Maya nodded, understanding even as her heart broke a little. "What about your work, the research you mentioned?" "I'll continue it," Alexander said firmly. "But from the shadows, at least for now. There are too many people depending on the breakthroughs we're developing to let personal danger stop us." "What kind of breakthroughs?" Alexander smiled, but there was sadness in it. "Treatments for rare genetic disorders, cures for diseases that pharmaceutical companies ignore because they're not profitable enough. We focus on the forgotten patients, the ones everyone else gives up on." Maya's breath caught. "Like my mother's." "Cancer?" Alexander's expression shifted to one of sharp attention. "Your mother has cancer." "Pancreatic," Maya said quietly. "Stage 4. The doctors say there's nothing they can do except keep her comfortable." "What's her name?" "Elena Rodriguez. She's in room 347, 3 floors up from where we met." Alexander was quiet for a long moment, and Maya could practically see his mind working. "Maya, I want you to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me that whatever happens, whatever you hear about me in the coming days or weeks, you'll remember tonight. Remember that everything I do because of what you showed me. That there are still people in the world worth saving." Before Maya could ask what he meant, Alexander was kissing her again, deep and desperate, as if he were trying to memorize the taste of her. And despite everything, the uncertainty, the danger, the impossibility of their situation, Maya kissed him back with equal fervor. They made love again as dawn approached, slower this time, savoring each touch, each whispered endearment. Maya tried to memorize everything. The way Alexander's hands felt against her skin, the sound of his voice when he said her name, the way he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. When she woke hours later, Alexander was gone. 3 days passed in a blur of confusion and heartache. Maya threw herself into her work, trying to forget the green-eyed stranger who had appeared in her life like a fever dream and disappeared just as quickly. She almost convinced herself she'd imagined the whole thing, until she arrived at the hospital for her shift and found Dr. Harrison, the head of oncology, waiting for her in the break room. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said, his usually stern expression unusually animated, "I need to speak with you about your mother." Maya's blood ran cold. Is everything okay?" "More than okay," Dr. Harrison said, shaking his head in amazement. "Maya, I've been practicing oncology for 30 years and I've never seen anything like this. Your mother's latest blood work shows complete remission." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. "What? The tumors are gone. Not shrinking, not in regression. Gone, as if they never existed." Dr. Harrison pulled up her mother's charts. On his tablet, pointing to numbers that Maya's trained eye could see were indeed miraculous. "We're running additional tests to confirm. But Maya, your mother is cancer-free." Maya sank into a chair, her mind reeling. "How is that possible? Yesterday she could barely sit up." "We don't know," Dr. Harrison admitted. "The only change in her treatment protocol was a new medication that appeared on her chart 3 days ago. Something called Compound X47. I've never heard of it, and when I tried to research it, I couldn't find any information about the manufacturer." 3 days ago, the same day Alexander disappeared. "Dr. Harrison," Maya said carefully, "who authorized this medication?" "That's the strange part," he said, frowning. "The order came through proper channels, but it was marked as part of an experimental trial. Usually I'm involved in all trial authorizations, but this one, it's like it appeared out of nowhere." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. "Can I see the paperwork?" Dr. Harrison handed her the tablet, and Maya scrolled through her mother's updated treatment plan. Everything looked official, properly documented, except for one small detail that made her breath catch. The authorizing physician was listed as Dr. A. Blackthorne. "Dr. Harrison," Maya managed, "I need to see my mother." She found Elena Rodriguez sitting up in bed, more alert and vibrant than Maya had seen her in months. Her color was good, her eyes bright, and when she saw Maya she smiled with a radiance that brought tears to her daughter's eyes. "Mija," Elena said, reaching out to embrace her. "The doctors tell me I'm going to be okay. They say it's a miracle." "Mom," Maya said, holding her tight, "how do you feel?" "Like I've been given a second chance," Elena said simply. "Like someone upstairs decided I still had work to do down here." Maya spent an hour with her mother, marveling at the transformation. Elena was asking about Maya's studies, making plans for when she was discharged, talking about the future, in a way she hadn't done in months. It wasn't until Maya was leaving that she noticed the small card tucked into the flowers on her mother's nightstand. Plain white cardstock with elegant handwriting. "For Maya, because you showed me what it means to save a life worth saving." Amaya's hands trembled as she turned the card over. On the back, in the same careful script, "Roof access, Building C, 11 p.m. tonight. Come alone." Maya looked around the room, her pulse spiking. How had he gotten in here? How had he known which room her mother was in? But more importantly, what did he want now? Building C was the oldest part of St. Mary's Hospital, a brick structure that housed administrative offices and storage. Maya had never been to the roof, but she found the access, stairs easily enough, her heart pounding as she climbed. The door opened onto a small rooftop garden that she hadn't known existed, complete with benches and a view of the city skyline. Alexander was there, silhouetted against the lights of downtown, looking every inch the billionaire heir in his perfectly tailored suit. He looked different than he had 3 nights ago, stronger, healthier, but also more distant. The vulnerability she'd glimpsed in her apartment was gone, replaced by something more guarded, more controlled. "You came," he said without turning around. "Did you think I wouldn't?" Maya approached carefully, unsure of her reception. "I hoped you would." Alexander finally turned to face her, and Maya's breath caught. Even in the dim rooftop lighting, his green eyes were as striking as she remembered. "How is your mother?" "You know how she is," Maya said. "You saved her life." "I kept a promise," Alexander corrected. "You saved mine first." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. "The medication you gave her," Maya said finally. "Compound X47, what is it?" A targeted immunotherapy that my team developed specifically for pancreatic cancer, Alexander said. We've been working on it for 3 years, but the FDA approval process. It would take another decade to bring it to market through traditional channels. So you just gave it to her illegally? I gave it to her because she needed it, Alexander said firmly. Because her daughter saved my life and because sometimes the right thing to do isn't the legal thing to do. Maya shook her head in amazement. Do you have any idea what this means? If this compound works, if you can replicate these results, we can save thousands of lives, Alexander finished, maybe tens of thousands, which is why I need to ask something of you, Maya. What? Alexander reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. Inside this envelope is everything you need to know about Compound X47, the formula, the research data, the trial results. I'm giving it to you. Maya stared at the envelope like it might bite her. Why? Because 3 days ago someone tried to kill me for this research, Alexander said. Someone inside my own company, someone I trusted. I don't know who, and I don't know how deep the conspiracy goes, but I know that this research is too important to die with me. Alexander, the people who tried to poison me, they're not going to stop, he continued, his voice urgent. They'll keep coming for me, and eventually they might succeed. But if you have this research, if you can find a way to publish it or get it to the right people. You're asking me to take on your enemies, Maya said quietly. I'm asking you to help me save lives, Alexander corrected, the way you saved mine. Maya took the envelope with trembling hands, feeling the weight of it, not just the physical weight, but the responsibility it represented. There's something else, Alexander said, his voice softer now. Maya, what happened between us 3 nights ago was necessary to save your life, Maya interrupted, not sure she could bear to hear him minimize what they'd shared. Was the most real thing I've ever experienced, Alexander said, stepping closer. Maya, I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who want something from me, money, connections, access to power. But you asked for nothing. You gave me everything, expected nothing in return. Alexander, I'm falling in love with you, he said simply, the words hitting Maya like a physical blow. I know it's impossible. I know the timing is terrible. I know my life is dangerous and complicated and nothing like what you deserve, but I needed you to know. Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. Then why does this feel like goodbye? Because it might be, Alexander admitted. The people after me, they won't hesitate to hurt you to get to me. As long as you're in my life, you're in danger. What if I don't care about the danger? Alexander's expression softened, and for a moment Maya caught a glimpse of the vulnerable man she'd held in her arms. Maya, you have your whole life ahead of you. Medical school, your career, your family. You can't throw that away for someone. You've known for 3 days. Can't I? Maya stepped closer, close enough to touch him. Alexander, in 3 days, you've shown me more of who I can be than 24 years of living ever did. You've saved my mother's life, given me research. That could change the world and made me feel... Feel what? Feel like I matter, Maya whispered, like I'm part of something bigger than myself. Alexander's hand rose to cup her face, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. You matter more than you know, Maya Rodriguez. More than you'll ever know. He kissed her then, soft and desperate, and Maya felt her heart breaking and healing at the same time. When they broke apart, Alexander pressed something into her hand, a small device that looked like a high-tech phone. If you ever need me, he said, press the red button. I'll come for you, no matter where I am, no matter what it costs. Alexander, I have to go, he said, backing away from her. The longer I stay, the more danger I put you in. Wait, Maya called after him as he headed for the stairwell. I don't even know your real name. Alexander paused at the door, turning back with a sad smile. My real name is Alexander James Blackthorne III, he said, but the man who fell in love with you in 3 days, his name is just Alex. And then he was gone, leaving Maya alone on the rooftop with an envelope full of life-saving research and a heart full of love for a man who might as well be a ghost. 2 weeks passed before Maya saw Alexander again, but when she did, It wasn't under circumstances either of them would have chosen. Maya was leaving her biochemistry class at the nursing school, her mind still spinning with the implications of compound X47's molecular structure, when she noticed the black SUV that had been parked across the street for the past 3 days. She'd told herself she was being paranoid, that Alexander's warnings about danger had made her jumpy. But when the SUV's doors opened and 2 men in expensive suits stepped out, Maya's medical training kicked in, flooding her system with adrenaline. She didn't run. Instead, she walked calmly into the nearest building, the university library, and made her way to the back exit. But as she pushed through the rear doors, she found herself face to face with a third man, this one holding what was unmistakably a gun. "Ms. Rodriguez," the man said, his accent crisp and European, "my employer would like to speak with you." Maya's hand instinctively went to the device Alexander had given her, still tucked in her jacket pocket. "I think you have me confused with someone else." "I don't think so," the man said, gesturing with his weapon toward a waiting car. Please, Ms. Rodriguez. We can do this the easy way or the hard way." Maya's thumb found the red button on Alexander's device and pressed it as she raised her hands in surrender. "Okay," she said, "the easy way." The men escorted her to a black sedan with tinted windows. As they drove through the city, Maya tried to memorize the route, but after several turns designed to confuse, she lost track of their location. They ended up at an upscale office building downtown, the kind of gleaming glass tower that housed law firms and consulting companies. Maya was escorted to the 20th floor, past security checkpoints that suggested this was no ordinary business meeting. The office they brought her to was opulent, mahogany furniture, Persian rugs, oil paintings that looked like they belonged in a museum. Behind a massive desk sat a woman in her 50s, silver-haired and impeccably dressed, with eyes like chips of blue ice. "Ms. Rodriguez," the woman said, her voice carrying a slight accent that Maya couldn't place. "Please sit. I apologize for the dramatic circumstances, but time is of the essence." "Who are you?" Maya asked, remaining standing. "My name is Victoria Blackthorne," the woman said, and Maya felt the blood drain from her face. "I'm Alexander's stepmother." Maya sank into the offered chair, her mind reeling. His stepmother. "Indeed. And you, my dear, are the young woman who has been sleeping with my stepson and interfering in family business." Heat flooded Maya's cheeks. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please, Ms. Rodriguez, we both know that's not true." Victoria opened a file folder on her desk, revealing photographs that made Maya's stomach clench. Pictures of her and Alexander on the hospital rooftop, enhanced and magnified until every detail was visible. "We've been watching Alexander for weeks," Victoria continued conversationally, "ever since he stole proprietary research from Blackthorne Industries and went into hiding. Imagine our surprise when we discovered he'd entrusted that research to a nursing student." "I don't have any research," Maya lied. Victoria smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Ms. Rodriguez, we know about Compound X47. We know about your mother's miraculous recovery, and we know that Alexander gave you something before he disappeared." Maya's mind raced, trying to process the implications. "If you're his stepmother, why are you hunting him?" "Because Alexander is naive," Victoria said, her voice hardening. "He thinks he can give away company secrets in the name of altruism. He doesn't understand that Blackthorne Industries has investors, stockholders, people who have put billions into our research with the expectation of profit." "You're talking about withholding a cure for cancer to maintain profits," Maya said, disgust creeping into her voice. "I'm talking about protecting a business that employs 50,000 people worldwide," Victoria snapped. "A business that funds hundreds of research projects, that has brought dozens of life-saving medications to market. Alexander's idealism could destroy everything his father built." "What do you want from me?" "The research," Victoria said simply. "All of it. Every formula, every data set, every backup copy. In exchange, I'll ensure that your mother continues to receive the medication she needs, and I'll see that you and your family are left alone." "And if I refuse?" Victoria's smile turned predatory. "Then your mother's supply of compound X47 will be cut off immediately." Her cancer will return within weeks, and this time there will be no miraculous recovery. Maya felt sick. You would let an innocent woman die to get what you want. I would do whatever it takes to protect my family's interests, Victoria said coldly, just as Alexander is doing whatever it takes to protect his naive ideals. Before Maya could respond, the office door burst open with explosive force. Alexander strode in, flanked by two men Maya didn't recognize, but who moved with the fluid grace of professional bodyguards. Victoria, Alexander said, his voice deadly calm. I thought I made it clear that Maya was off limits. Alexander, darling. Victoria rose from her chair, seemingly unperturbed by the dramatic entrance. How wonderful to see you. You look well, considering the circumstances. Release her, Alexander said, not moving from his position by the door. I'm afraid I can't do that, Victoria replied. You see, Ms. Rodriguez has something that belongs to the company, something you stole. I didn't steal anything, Alexander said. I took research that I helped develop, research that I have every right to use as I see fit. Research funded by Blackthorn Industries, Victoria countered, research that belongs to our shareholders. Maya watched the exchange like a tennis match, her heart hammering as she began to understand the full scope of the conflict between Alexander and his family. Maya, Alexander said, his eyes finding hers across the room. Are you hurt? I'm fine, Maya managed. But Alexander, she's threatening my mother. I know, Alexander said, his jaw clenching. Victoria, you and I both know this isn't about the research. This is about control. This is about you maintaining power over the company. Perhaps, Victoria allowed, but the result is the same. Give me what I want, Alexander, or watch the people you care about suffer. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, and Maya could see him weighing his options. When he spoke, his voice was resigned but determined. Fine, he said. You win, Victoria. I'll give you the research. Alexander, no, Maya protested, but he silenced her with a look. But I have conditions, Alexander continued. Maya goes free, unharmed, and never contacted by your people again. Her mother continues to receive compound X-47 for as long as she needs it. And I want your word that no one else will be hurt in this family war of yours. Victoria considered this. And in exchange, I'll give you everything, Alexander said, every formula, every research note, every backup, but I want something in return. What? Alexander's smile was sharp as a blade. I want to know which one of my father's partners you're working with, because we both know you didn't orchestrate that assassination attempt on your own. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Victoria's composed mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. I'm sure I don't know what you mean, she said carefully. The ricin injection was too sophisticated for a simple corporate takeover, Alexander continued. Someone with serious resources wanted me dead. Someone who knew exactly where I'd be and when. Someone inside the company's inner circle. Maya watched Victoria's face, saw the moment the older woman realized her stepson had been setting a trap all along. You're fishing, Victoria said, but her voice lacked conviction. Am I? Alexander reached into his jacket and pulled out a small recording device. Because I've been recording this conversation since I walked in. Corporate espionage, attempted murder, extortion, kidnapping. I think that's enough to put you away for a very long time. Victoria's composure cracked completely. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Alexander. The forces at play here are bigger than you can imagine. Then tell me, Alexander said. Help me understand why my own stepmother tried to have me killed. For a moment, Maya thought Victoria might actually confess, but then the older woman's expression hardened into something utterly cold. Guards, Victoria called out. But nothing happened. The men who had brought Maya to the building were nowhere to be seen. Looking for your security team, one of Alexander's bodyguards asked pleasantly. They're taking a little nap. Nothing permanent, just something to help them sleep through this conversation. Victoria sank back into her chair, defeat written across her features. What do you want, Alexander? The truth, Alexander said simply. All of it. What Victoria revealed over the next hour changed everything Maya thought she knew about Alexander and the forces that had brought them together. Your father, Victoria began, her voice taking on a bitter edge, was not the humanitarian saint you remember, Alexander. James Blackthorne was a brilliant scientist, yes, but he was also ruthlessly practical. Get to the point, Alexander said, but Maya could hear the uncertainty creeping into his voice. The point is that Compound X-47 was never meant to be given away for free, Victoria continued. It was designed as a weapon. Maya felt her blood turn to ice. A weapon? A targeted bioweapon, Victoria explained, something that could be deployed against specific genetic markers, specific populations. The cancer-fighting properties were a side effect, not the primary function. Alexander stared at his stepmother in horror. That's impossible. I read every line of Dad's research notes. You read the sanitized version, Victoria interrupted. The version he created after he developed a conscience. But the original research, the research funded by our government partners, that was all about creating the perfect assassination tool. Maya felt sick. The medication that had saved her mother's life, that she'd been planning to use to help thousands of people, was it really derived from research into biological warfare? Even if that were true, Alexander said slowly, it doesn't change what we can do with the compound now. We can use it to save lives. Can we? Victoria pulled out another file folder, this one thick with official-looking documents. Alexander, do you know who's been funding Blackthorne Industries' research division for the past 5 years? Alexander's face went pale as he scanned the documents. The Defense Department. Specifically, a black-budget project designed to develop next-generation bioweapons, Victoria confirmed. Your idealistic plan to give away Compound X-47 for free? It would be considered an act of treason. Maya's head was spinning. So, the people who tried to kill Alexander were government operatives trying to protect a classified project, Victoria finished. I didn't order the hit, Alexander. I've been trying to protect you from it, by threatening Maya, by having her kidnapped. By trying to convince you to give up this suicidal crusade, Victoria shot back. Alexander, if you release that research publicly, you'll be branded a terrorist. They'll hunt you down and they won't stop with just you. Anyone who's helped you, anyone who knows about the compound, she looked directly at Maya. They'll all be considered threats to national security. Alexander sank into a chair, the weight of the revelation clearly crushing him. Dad knew about this, about the weapons applications? He figured it out near the end, Victoria said, her voice softening slightly. Why do you think he was so secretive in his final months? Why do you think he died in that car accident right before he was supposed to testify before a congressional committee? You're saying Dad was murdered. I'm saying your father tried to expose the program and it got him killed, Victoria said bluntly, and now you're walking down the same path. Maya watched Alexander process this information, saw the moment, when everything he'd believed about his father, about his family's legacy, came crashing down around him. So, what are my options? Alexander asked quietly. Give up the research and let people like Maya's mother die. Or release it and watch everyone I care about get hunted down like criminals. There is a third option, Victoria said carefully. Which is? We fake your death, Victoria said. Make it look like the government operatives succeeded in eliminating you. You disappear completely. New identity, new life, far away from all of this. And the research? Gets buried with you, Victoria said. Officially, anyway. Unofficially. Well, there are ways to ensure that selected patients like Elena Rodriguez continue to receive treatment through back channels. Maya felt her heart breaking as she watched Alexander consider this option. It would mean safety for everyone, but it would also mean the end of any possibility for them to be together. There's another way, Maya said suddenly, the idea crystallizing as she spoke. Both Alexander and Victoria turned to look at her. What if we don't have to choose between safety and saving lives? Maya continued, her mind racing. What if we can do both? Maya, Alexander began. Listen to me, Maya interrupted. Victoria, You said the government is concerned about the research being released publicly, right? About it falling into the wrong hands. That's correct. But what if it doesn't get released publicly? Maya turned to Alexander. What if instead of trying to give the research away, we find a way to implement it quietly? Through existing medical channels? Clinical trials that don't attract attention? Alexander's eyes began to light up with understanding. A legitimate pharmaceutical development process. Exactly, Maya said, warming to her theme. We take the compound through proper FDA approval, but we do it through a shell company, something not obviously connected to Blackthorn Industries. It takes longer, but it's legal, it's safe, and it gets the medication to people who need it. Victoria frowned. The government partners would never approve. They don't have to know, Maya interrupted. Not until it's too late to stop. By the time Compound X47 reaches market, through legitimate channels, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. Alexander stood up, pacing as he thought through the implications. It could work, he said slowly, but it would take years, maybe a decade, and we'd need funding, researchers, clinical facilities. I can help with that, Victoria said, quietly. Both Maya and Alexander stared at her in surprise. Victoria, Alexander began. I may be a ruthless businesswoman, Victoria interrupted, but I'm not a monster. If there's a way to save lives without getting my family killed, I'm willing to explore it. Maya felt a surge of hope. So we work together, all of us? It won't be easy, Victoria warned. We'll have to be incredibly careful, incredibly subtle. One wrong move, one leak to the wrong person, and we all end up like James. Alexander looked at Maya, and she could see the internal struggle playing. How to cross his features? This plan would mean years of living in the shadows, years of careful maneuvering and constant danger. But it would also mean they could stay together, could continue fighting for what they believed in. Maya, Alexander said softly, if we do this, there's no going back. Your life will never be normal again. Maya thought about her mother, healthy and vibrant for the first time in months. She thought about all the other mothers, fathers, children who could be saved if they succeeded. She thought about Alexander, brilliant and passionate and willing to risk everything for what was right. Normal is overrated, Maya said firmly. Besides, I never wanted normal. I wanted to matter. Alexander's smile was radiant. Then let's change the world. 6 months later, Maya stood in the gleaming laboratory of Phoenix Medical Research, a small biotech company that had appeared seemingly overnight with impressive funding and an ambitious mission to develop treatments for rare cancers. What the scientific community didn't know was that Phoenix Medical was Alexander's creation, funded through a complex web of shell companies and offshore accounts that would take forensic accountants years to untangle. What they also didn't know was that the company's lead researcher, Dr. Maya Rodriguez, had just received early acceptance to Johns Hopkins Medical School with a full scholarship, courtesy of an anonymous benefactor. The Phase 1 trials are showing remarkable promise, Maya reported to the small group gathered in the conference room. Patient response rates are exceeding our most optimistic projections. Around the table sat Alexander, using the name Dr. Alex Morrison, along with Victoria, now going by Dr. Victoria Sterling, and a handful of carefully vetted researchers who thought they were working on a completely different compound. It had taken months to reverse engineer Compound X47, just enough to make it appear like a new discovery. Months more to set up the shell company and recruit the team. But slowly, carefully, they were building something that could genuinely change the world. Any concerns from the oversight committees? Victoria asked. None so far, Maya replied. As far as the FDA is concerned, we're just another small biotech company with promising preliminary data. Nothing to attract special attention. And our government friends? Alexander's expression darkened slightly. Still convinced I'm dead. The car bomb in Montenegro was very convincing. Maya still got chills thinking about that operation. Victoria's contacts in the intelligence community had helped stage Alexander's death so thoroughly that even Maya had believed it for a few terrifying hours. Any regrets? Victoria asked, looking around the table. Maya met Alexander's eyes across the conference room and felt the same jolt of electricity she'd experienced that first night in the rain. They'd been living as Dr. Maya Rodriguez and Dr. Alex Morrison, colleagues and research partners, maintaining professional boundaries in public while building something incredible together in private. None, Maya said firmly. After the meeting, Maya and Alexander walked through the lab, checking on various experiments and reviewing data. To any observer, they appeared to be dedicated colleagues, perhaps friends. Only someone who looked very closely would notice the way their hands brushed when they exchanged files, or the way Alexander's eyes lingered on Maya's face when she was concentrating. Your mother called earlier," Alexander said quietly as they reviewed cell cultures. "The latest scans show complete remission, no signs of recurrence." Maya smiled. Elena had been their first unofficial clinical trial, and watching her recovery had convinced Maya that what they were doing was worth any risk. "She wants to know when she's going to meet my mysterious boyfriend," Maya said teasingly. "What did you tell her?" "That he's very busy saving the world," Alexander chuckled. Not inaccurate. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the easy intimacy of people who had learned to communicate without words. It wasn't the life either of them had planned, living under assumed identities, constantly watching for signs they'd been discovered, building something beautiful while pretending it was ordinary. But as Maya watched Alexander explain something to one of their junior researchers, saw the passion in his eyes when he talked about the potential applications of their work, she knew she wouldn't change anything. "Maya," Alexander said softly, appearing beside her, "there's something I want to show you." "Show you?" He led her to his private office, closing the door behind them. From his desk drawer he pulled out a small velvet box. Maya's heart stopped. "Alexander, I know we can't have a normal relationship," he said, opening the box to reveal a simple but stunning diamond ring. "I know we can't have a big wedding or announce our engagement in the paper or do any of the things that normal couples do. But I love you, Maya Rodriguez," Alexander said, dropping to one knee. "I love your courage, your compassion, your brilliant mind, and your stubborn refusal to accept that some people can't be saved. I love that you gave everything to save a stranger, and I love that you've never asked for anything in return." Tears were streaming down Maya's face now. "Alexander, I want to spend whatever life we can build together," he continued, "whether it's as Alex Morrison and Maya Rodriguez, or as entirely different people, or as ourselves if we ever get to reclaim our real identities. Will you marry me?" Maya dropped to her knees in front of him, framing his face with her hands. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Alexander slipped the ring onto her finger, and Maya marveled at how perfectly it fit, how right it felt. "There's one more thing," Alexander said as they stood up, his arms wrapping around her. "What?" "Victoria's been in contact with some people, legitimate people, people who can help us when we're ready to go public with our research. Senators, journalists, medical ethicists, people who can help us tell our story the right way when the time comes." Maya's eyes widened. "You mean, I mean someday we might not have to hide," Alexander said. "Someday we might be able to be Alexander and Maya again, publicly, openly. It might take years, but there's hope." "There's always hope," Alexander agreed, kissing her softly. "You taught me that." As Maya kissed the man who had appeared in her life like a storm and changed everything, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with a desperate act of sacrifice, a stranger willing to trust her with his life. It had led them through danger and deception, through family secrets and government conspiracies. But somehow, impossibly, it had also led them to this, to love, to purpose, to the chance to save lives and build something meaningful together. Outside the laboratory windows, the city stretched out before them, full of people who didn't know their names or their story. People who would never know that Dr. Maya Rodriguez and Dr. Alex Morrison were working quietly, carefully, to give them hope. Maya looked at the engagement ring sparkling on her finger, then at Alexander, brilliant, devoted, brave Alexander, who had given up everything to save strangers. "So what's next?" she asked. Alexander's smile was radiant. We save the world, one patient at a time. Together, always together. And as they stood in their laboratory, surrounded by the tools they would use to heal the world, Maya knew that sometimes the best love stories began not with a meet-cute or a grand gesture, but with one person's willingness to sacrifice everything for a stranger. After all, she had given her virginity to save a dying stranger, unaware he was the love of her life. But now she knew the truth. Sometimes the most important people in our lives arrive in the most unexpected ways, at the most impossible moments, asking for the most difficult sacrifices. And sometimes, if we're brave enough to say yes, those sacrifices become the foundation of something beautiful beyond imagination. Maya Rodriguez had learned that lesson in a parking lot during a thunderstorm, and she would carry it with her for the rest of her extraordinary life. This story explores themes of sacrifice, love, redemption, and the power of one person's decision to help a stranger. Maya's journey from struggling nursing student to pioneering medical researcher shows how acts of compassion can transform not just individual lives, but the world itself. Through her relationship with Alexander, we see how true love can bloom even in the most impossible circumstances, and how two people committed to saving others can build something beautiful together while staying true to their deepest values. The narrative demonstrates that sometimes the most meaningful connections happen when we're willing to risk everything for someone we barely know, and that the stranger we choose to help might just be the person who changes our life forever.